Hi guys, it's Dakota. I wanted to talk today about knowledge, witchcraft knowledge, and where you get that from. So I'm going to start off with the obvious, and that's books. There are libraries full of witchcraft books, metaphysical stores, um, Barnes and Noble, all the bookstores. You can find books on witchcraft, books on the occult, etc. And my issue, and it's not really an issue, but what I want to point out on this video is that there are some books that you really have to use some discernment when you're choosing your books. Some research. Do some research on that author before you just go out and buy the book, because it has this really cool witchy cover, and it's written by someone who has this really cool witchy name, and the title of the book is real witchy. I believe it's been within this last year. It might even be this year, 2020. It might have been last year when this all started. But there's been a few authors out there that came to the attention of some other prominent authors, prominent witches, and this started going around questioning these authors, like, have you heard of so and so? Have you read that book? Have you ever met them? Have you ever seen them at any of the pagan festivals? I've never heard of this person. And when they start doing the research, when you start doing the research, you find out that who is this person? There's nothing anywhere that you can find about the person except for the bio on the back of the cover, which most likely they wrote. So I don't know how many authors there were, but I know there was at least one, but I think there was more, who were actually like copying, like copyright infringement, books by other prominent authors, and they were literally copying almost word for word that person's book, but calling it something else. And wow, I mean, what an infringement! It was just terrible. And so I don't know if there's a lawsuit going on with that. I would hope that there is. That's so unethical. And so there you go. When I heard that, I went, well, then that person could not be a witch, because, or there's someone who just calls themselves a witch because they think it's cool. But they obviously have not had any training in the structure and witchcraft values, our ethics, our responsibility. The code of ethics and responsibility falls under that. Then there was another author or two who wrote books where if you had any knowledge at all, any structured kind of a learned practice of witchcraft, and you do your research, you would read this information, you'd read these books and go, what are they even talking about? What is that? But here's the thing that was really worrisome, is if you were new and you didn't know any better, you would have bought the book because maybe it had a really cool witchy cover with a really cool witchy title, and maybe the person that wrote it had a really cool witchy name, so therefore they must be a really awesome witch, when indeed they really weren't a witch at all. I don't know if they are or not. I'm just saying, by what happened with the copying of the copyright infringements, and after doing research, the like that's not even, I've never even heard of that, some of the stuff that was written in a couple of the other books. So I don't know. I think they've been pulled. I think they've been pulled. I've not seen them from my distributors. But anyway, so what's worrisome is that if you were new and you just picked up that book because you thought it was really cool, then you wouldn't know. And So then you would be walking around thinking that you had all this knowledge, but you would have knowledge, but is it the knowledge that you need to create witchcraft in the sense of the old ways, or as close to the old ways as we can get? So I know that it's modern witchcraft today, and I know there are those that try to practice the old ways as much as they can. And I am, you know, heartfelt gratitude to those that can carry the flame of that. Um, I would say that I am more of a modern witch. Um, I do probably have some old way practices, I hope, and I'm grateful to have those, and I'm blessed to work in that arena if I can. But so my advice with books is don't buy a book based on its cover. Isn't that like a saying or something? But it's true. I mean, it's really true. And the same goes for tarot cards. I don't know how many decks I have that I didn't research. I never looked at the cards. I just saw the box and went, oh, I love that. I must have it. And I get it home and I open it up and I go, oh, these cards are jacked up. These are terrible. I hate these cards, and then you never look at them again. So, yeah, so don't judge a book based on its cover. Who's the author? And do some research on that. First of all, that's knowledge. Now you have some knowledge. There's the start of your knowledge. Who is the author? What is their background? And don't just read the bio on the back of the book. That means nothing. Not that it means nothing, but I mean, they could have written it. You don't know. Do some research on the author and find out where their experience lies. I have known a couple of people, and I didn't know them personally. I've heard stories, so maybe I shouldn't even say it, but of people, a couple of people that, they took an online class and, it was a year and a day, and they finished and they even got a certificate to show that they are a certified witch. And when you go and look up that website, I mean, seriously, it's, Hogwarts 101. I mean, it's really not. It's really not. Like, it's almost like somebody, it's like one of those authors. Somebody took somebody else's book and designed a website, a correspondence website, and you paid for the course, and this month you're studying this, and each week you maybe get a lesson or two. So anyway, you have to really be careful, and you have to do your work, and that is the first part of knowledge. Know what you're getting and know who you're getting it from. Now, the other source of knowledge in witchcraft is mentors. So there are teachers, there are people who teach witchcraft, and I teach witchcraft. I don't have a scroll of labels, of titles. I do have a background in a tradition, but that means nothing as far as what I teach. But the knowledge that I gained from those years, I took what I feel is important, is of utmost important to someone who is new and truly wants to learn witchcraft. I do try to keep Wicca separate, but they are intertwined. In my opinion, I feel like they're a little bit intertwined. And so sometimes Wicca does come into my program, but I make sure that you understand when you are done with the class, you're not Wiccan. And not from me. Maybe from you, but not from me. So, and you can title yourself witch if you want. You could take no classes and title yourself witch if you wanted. If you just read books, it's up to you. It's all up to you. But knowledge comes from a number of places. And the knowledge about witchcraft is more than just, oh yeah, I read that book and I did a spell. You know, if you're going to, when you're working witchcraft, whether you know it or not, you are working with the elements, because if you're working with herbs, earth. If you're working with candle, fire. You know, if you're making tinctures or even oils, then we have water. If you're making incense, then you're working with the element of the air. So you are working with the elements. So then my question to you is, what do you know about them? What do you know about the elements? I mean, we know earth, air, fire, and water. Great. Whoopee. What do you know about them? You better learn about them, and you need to know about them. That is part of the structure of witchcraft. It's part of the knowing of knowledge. It's the know in knowledge. So if you're working with the elements, then you need to know why you're working with the elements and what those elements represent and how they work with your magic and why they work with your magic. So you need to be able to concentrate. You need to be able to have clarity. You need to be able to have visualization. You need to know the end result that you want. You need to be precise in what it is that you're asking for. So all of those things fall under knowledge. You need to have knowledge to understand all of that. Not every mentor, you're not going to like every mentor. You're just not. There were plenty of teachers that I've had over the years in school. I didn't like all my teachers. I'm sure they didn't like me either. I've had some mentors in my adult life. Don't have to like all your mentors. I respect the knowledge, and I took what worked for me from the knowledge. When I learned something that didn't resonate with me, or I didn't understand how that corresponds with what it is I'm doing, if I still don't use that today, what I gained was knowledge. I know that I don't want to use that in my magic. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't resonate with me. I know this now. Thank you for that lesson. So we can take lessons that where just whoop blows your mind, and then you can take lessons where you just go, ugh. But when you do that second emotion, you still learned something. You learned something. Be grateful for that. Take that for what it's worth. You know, you have to take that for what it's worth. You may not understand it, and you may not like the subject matter. You don't have to. Nobody says you have to. But what you gained from it was knowledge. You learned that you don't like it. Okay, great. Don't use it. But now you know. So that's how that works. We get knowledge from nature. It's the best teacher probably ever in witchcraft. Nature is the best teacher. In witchcraft, you can learn a lot from nature. If you follow the wheel of the year, you learn about our seasons and how the ancestors worked the year, how they survived for the year. It's extremely important in my path. So nature and when I say nature, everything from not just sun, moon, but plants, bugs, birds, water, everything. Everything in nature is a lesson. Everything in nature is a lesson. So there's a lot of knowledge in nature. I'm looking at my notes. Sorry. You need to be really open and you need to be really receptive. Now, that receptive part comes from the other things that I told you about being able to concentrate and being able to have clarity and visualization, keeping the chakras clear, keeping your mind open, letting that energy flow, being open, learning how to not second guess yourself, learning to say, I have this feeling, and even though I'm not going to do anything with it right now, I'm going to write it down because I want to make sure that I have it in writing. You know what I mean? Like, so that you can reflect back on it and go, I knew that. I should have went with what I thought. And all of that takes time. All of that takes time. And so that leads me up to the best experience, or the best knowledge, gave it away. The next knowledge, the next piece of, I'll get this right, the next piece of knowledge that is what I think is extremely important is experience. You need to practice, and then you need to practice, and then you need to practice. You need to work the magic. You need to work the witchcraft. How does it feel? How did it feel when you did that? It didn't work for you. How can you change that so that you can try it again and see if it works? What do you know? What have you learned? What corresponds with that? Where was the moon? What phase was the moon in when you did that? What was happening with the planets astrologically? All of those things. You were doing a healing, and you used fire. You used reds. Why? Because it was pretty. I mean, color has vibration, and color has correspondence. So typically blue and green would be for healing. I'm not saying that red never can be. Certainly can be, but you have to know why it can be, and you have to know how to use it for a healing. So knowledge is just not about what you've read in a book. It's not just about what a teacher has taught you. It's not just about what you learned on the internet. It's about taking all of that and putting it together and experimenting with it, using the knowledge that you have. So there's that saying that knowledge isn't power. Power is what you do with the knowledge. I think I said that. So that couldn't be more true. So I don't have a problem with people that just like to dabble here and there. I really don't. I don't have a problem with that. I would suggest you be careful. I would advise that you be careful with, I mean, you are working with the elements, so I would just make sure that you're careful in what you're doing. And if you're wanting to do this as part of your daily walk, then I would suggest doing research before you just read a book. I would suggest that you do research before just picking a mentor because they happen to be offering a class on such and such. What does that person know? There's a lot of things, and the The main power comes from you. The main power comes from you, and the main knowledge comes from you. I would hope by now that you know the difference between right and wrong. In witchcraft, we have a saying that there's no wrong way to do something. Um, I would do research on that if I were you, and it's not so much that there's no wrong way, but there is a righter way sometimes, if that makes sense. So, yeah, so that's what I wanted to have to say about knowledge. You have the knowledge, so use it. See you next week. Bye.